The drama surrounding Beyoncé and Rihanna was always whispered, rarely shouted. But in the darkness of that silence lived the truth, ugly, twisting, and dangerously real. And now, after years of coded lyrics, quiet refusals, and subtle sidesteps, Rihanna's truth is finally emerging, not as a tell-all but as a puzzle slowly falling into place. The image we thought we knew, of sisterhood, mutual respect, artistic admiration, has begun to fracture. Behind the flawless gowns and red carpet smiles, behind the Grammy stages and Instagram perfection, lay a different narrative, one defined not by empowerment but by intimidation, betrayal, and survival. Began with awe. Rihanna idolized Beyoncé. As a young teen from Barbados stepping into Jay-Z's orbit, Rihanna spoke of Beyoncé with reverence. Interviews from the early 2000s show her voice softening at the mention of Queen Bey, her eyes lighting up when recounting the advice Beyoncé gave her. There was genuine warmth there, or at least the illusion of it. But something shifted, quietly and quickly. The hugs became colder, public praise less frequent, and behind the scenes the vibe went from mentorship to manipulation. The catalyst? Power. And Jay-Z. Jay-Z, Beyoncé's husband and the architect of Rihanna's early career, has long been surrounded by rumors, whispers about his interest in young female artists, his controlling tendencies, his blurred boundaries. Rihanna was no exception. She was a teen, new to the country, starstruck and vulnerable. The deal she signed, many believe, came at a cost. There's a quote, chilling in hindsight, where she recounts Jay saying, "There are two ways to leave here, through the door with a signed deal or through the window, and they were on the 29th floor. It might have sounded like a joke at the time, but in the current context it reads like a warning, an omen of the pressure and control to come. Once inside the system, Rihanna played the game. She smiled for cameras, followed the rules, delivered hits. But in interviews, if you paid close attention, you could hear the restraint. The calculated pauses, the diplomatic answers, the way she said just enough to sound gracious but never enough to give herself away. It was survival. And Beyoncé? She didn't intervene. In fact, as Rihanna's star rose, Beyoncé seemed to pull away. Not just emotionally, but logistically. Industry insiders say Beyoncé avoided being booked at the same events as Rihanna, declined invitations where their paths would cross. Rumors even swirl that when Jay-Z suggested collaborations between the two, Beyoncé refused outright. Some say it was jealousy. Others claim it was strategy. But it wasn't just avoidance. It was protection of an image. Beyoncé has built her empire on the notion of control. Every performance, every Instagram post, every breath is curated. And within that brand, there was no room for the chaos Rihanna represented. Rihanna was raw, unpredictable, too honest. She didn't follow the script, and in Beyoncé's world, that unpredictability was a threat. Worse, Rihanna's mere presence raised questions Beyoncé couldn't answer, not without cracking the perfect facade. Then came the parties. Private events. The stories. Insiders recall a particular night, one shrouded in secrecy, now immortalized in rumor. A Diddy-hosted gathering deep in the Hollywood Hills. High-profile guests, tight security, no phones allowed. But the stories leaked anyway. Not the salacious gossip tabloids love, but the quiet ones. The ones that send shivers. Guests recall Rihanna arriving, instantly attracting attention, not just for her beauty but for her defiance. She didn't play coy. She didn't defer to industry gods. She was self-possessed in a room that expected obedience. It was that same night, reportedly, when Beyoncé approached her. Conversation, brief but intense, left Rihanna rattled. Some say it was a warning. Others say it was a veiled threat. Whatever was said, Rihanna left early. And she never attended another event hosted by that inner circle again. Not Jay-Z's Rock Nation brunches, not Beyoncé's private dinners. She made herself scarce. But silence, as we now know, doesn't always mean surrender. Years passed. Rihanna built an empire outside the music industry. Fenty, Savage X, billion-dollar brands that needed no industry cosign. She distanced herself, refused to participate in the award show circuits Beyoncé ruled. Fans wondered why the two never collaborated. Why Rihanna never appeared in the Black is King visual extravaganza. Why she was never photographed at a Knowles Carter family event. Now we know it was deliberate. Quiet rebellion. A refusal to pretend. Meanwhile, Beyoncé's name began to surface in strange places. Online forums. Blind items. And then in testimonies. Conversations about Diddy's parties. About the women who felt coerced. About the celebrities who enabled it. Beyoncé's name wasn't mentioned as a participant but as someone present. As someone who knew. And still came. Still smiled. Still mingled. For someone whose brand is rooted in female empowerment, the allegations felt like betrayal. Not active complicity, perhaps, but passive acceptance. And in a world where silence protects abusers, that acceptance speaks volumes. And then came the cheesecake story. A bizarre, seemingly trivial anecdote that spiraled into something darker. A former assistant recalled Beyoncé sending someone into a room where young models waited, bringing cheesecake as a peace offering after a tense closed-door meeting involving Diddy. Sounded innocent, till you realize the context. Power dynamics. The tension. The fact that food was being used to placate, to distract, to reassert control. Online, the story went viral, not because of the cheesecake but because of what it represented, an icon smoothing over something no one wanted to name. Rihanna, meanwhile, remained quiet but calculated. She gave interviews that danced around the truth, declined music collaborations that would have elevated her chart positions, kept events, and when asked about Beyoncé, offered no praise. Just silence. And that silence was louder than any diss track. Louder than any documentary. It was survival. 'Cause in this industry, when you know too much, your options narrow. You comply. Or you disappear. But Rihanna didn't disappear. She built her own throne. And now, with Beyoncé facing more scrutiny than ever, clips being re-examined, timelines cross-referenced, interviews dissected, Rihanna's distance looks less like rivalry and more like strategy. Fans are connecting dots that were always there. Why Beyoncé seemed cold when Rihanna rose, why Jay-Z's proximity to young female talent was never questioned, why the music often sounded like veiled confessions dressed as empowerment. Even lyrics hit different now. Beyoncé's Bow Down once felt like a feminist flex. Now it sounds like a threat. Rihanna's verses, once mistaken for shade, now read like coded warnings. Her refusal to engage wasn't pettiness, it was preservation. And yet, this story isn't about stan wars. It's not about who outsold who or who wore what better. It's about power. About manipulation. About silence. It's about what happens behind the curtain of celebrity perfection. About the women who are told to smile and stay quiet. And about the few who choose not to. In the end, Rihanna's refusal to play along is her loudest statement. Her empire is her mic drop. And Beyoncé, whether knowingly or not, may have helped keep a system intact that hurt the very women she claims to uplift. That duality, that contradiction, is what has fans shaken. Because if even half of this is true, we've all been cheering for a mask. And now that mask is starting to crack.